All right. Hey, welcome everyone to Unpack This. I'm your host, Gloria Bailey Ray. And today we are going to be talking about the emotional labor, the work women were never, hear me when I say this, were never paid for. All right. So again, I'm welcoming you to unpack this. So let me start by asking you a question. Um, how many of you are you're just tired, right? Not physically tired, but emotionally exhausted, and you're emotionally exhausted from carrying things that were never yours to carry. Just let that sit with you for a moment. See, we've been taught how to show up, right? How to be present, how to be supported, how to hold it together. But nobody ever taught us how to just put it down. And that's why we are unpacking the work women were never paid for, the emotional labor, right? And again, I'm Gloria Bailey Ray, the authentic coach, and we are in season 2 of unlearning. We are unlearning everything that was taught to us that taught us how to abandon ourselves in the name, get this, in the name of being a good woman, right? So today's conversation is going to hit, and I always say, um, I know it's tight, but it's right, right? So it's going to hit because we're unpacking the emotional labor. So many of us that we were never ever paid for, right? So let's define this. Let me start with this first of all, because you can't release what you can't name. Hopefully that makes sense. You can't release what you can't name. And see, emotional labor is about managing other people's feelings, anticipating needs, keeping the peace, softening the truth. How many of you done that? And fixing what you didn't even break. Mm. And then there's this piece where you're holding emotional space for people. And I need you to hear me clearly. You're holding emotional space for people who don't hold it for you. I am so guilty of dealing with this. For instance, like remembering birthdays. Man, I've even had people say, "Hey, I didn't get a card from you this year. I didn't get this." I'm holding this emotional labor, right? Um, Here's the piece. You're always checking in. You're apologizing first. You are explaining yourself gently so someone else doesn't feel uncomfortable, right? Oof. And the wild part, this is a piece where I just, this epiphany and why it's so important that we unpack this. The wild part of all of this is that most women, most of us, we didn't or don't even realize that we're doing it. Why? Because it's been normalized. That's the real deal. It's been expected. It's been rewarded. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You feel me on that, right? So, and by the way, hey, if you're tuning in live, place your comments in the comment section. Let me know where you are at, where you're tuning into. Um, and also, again, I tell you, if it hits right, and you feel the need, be sure and share it. But let me say this clearly: just because it's been this been common for many of us, it does not mean that it's healthy. And that's why we are unpacking this, right? So let me just, flip the script for a minute and let's just talk about, where did this all start? Where did it start? See, it didn't just start in your relationships, right? This actually started in your conditioning. You were taught to be nice, don't be difficult, um, always keep the peace. Think about how others may feel, but nobody said this. Nobody said, who's thinking about how you feel, right? So what happens? What happens is you grow into this woman who reads the room before she enters it, adjusts her tone to keep people comfortable, right? Carries conversations, carries relationships, y'all, even carries the silence. And guess what? Somewhere along the way, you stop asking, what do I need? Any of you relate to that? Right. So again, I just can't talk about it if I'm not being about it and if I haven't been through it. So let me just share, um, you know, something, I would say, more of a personal story. I just want to tell you something personal, right? See, there was a time in my life when I was the one everyone came to. I mean, everybody. I was considered the strong one, definitely the dependable one, the one who could handle it. You guys relate? And listen, for me, I wore that like a badge. I thought it meant I was valuable. I even thought that it meant I was needed. But here's the truth. What I didn't realize was I was being drained. Hear me when I say that, drained in places where I was never being replenished. Can you guys relate to that? Women, do you hear me? Can you relate to that? See, for me, I was listening, I was supporting, I was encouraging, I was showing up. But here is the crazy thing. At least it was crazy then. It's not so crazy now because I understand it. When I needed the same thing, all I got was silence. I got distance. Oh, I got a whole lot of excuses. And despite the fact that I didn't want to do this, but I really had to ask myself a hard question. And the question for me was, why am I giving so much to people who don't even notice what it costs me? And again, when you get those epiphanies, this is where you have to go. You got to reach down deep. And you really have to ask yourself that question. What is it costing me? And see, there's this invisible contract. And what do I mean by that? Here's the truth that nobody talks about. Emotional labor creates this, what I want to call this invisible contract. You start believing things like, if I show up for them, they'll show up for me. Not. Um, if I love them right, they'll love me back the same way. Not. And if I hold this together, it won't fall apart. But here's the problem. This is the crux of it. They never signed that contract, right? They never signed the contract. So it's you who's exhausted while they are comfortable, right? So allow me to just share with you how this emotional labor shows up in relationships. Let's talk about relationships for a moment. Why I talk about relationships? Because this is where, this hits the hardest, right? This is the real deal. See, you become, what I want to say, the emotional translator. You become the problem solver, the peacekeeper, the one that's doing all the check-ins, the ones who's always asking, are you okay? While nobody asks you. And see, you're managing moods. You're avoiding conflict. You're carrying conversations. You are fixing misunderstandings. And guess what? For them, they just show up. They just show up. And somewhere deep down, you start to feel it. And what am I talking about? What are you feeling? I'm glad you asked. You start to feel resentment, exhaustion, disconnection. That's real. And you feel it because you realize that love should not feel like a full-time job, right? That's only one person is working, and that's why it feels like that. It's just you and you, nobody else, right? So when I want to transition, let me talk about when other women benefit from your labor, because this isn't just about male-female relationship, jobs, but let's talk about those women, those so-called frenemies, those women who benefit from you doing everything. And some of you can't see the forest for the trees because you are so entrenched in it. So I want to go a little deeper because, like I said, this isn't about romantic relationships. This shows up in friendships. It shows up in organizations. It shows up in professional spaces. And here's the part that's uncomfortable to say out loud. Sometimes it's other women. Come on now. You guys feel me on that. It's other women. Women who will ask you to show up. They'll ask you to speak. They'll ask you to support. They'll even ask you to give your time, your energy, your expertise, right? And guess what? And they will then turn around and they'll take credit for the outcome. You're the one doing the work, but they're the one being recognized. Ooh, I know it's right. It's tight. It's hitting you. That's why we're unpacking this, right? Talk about the work that you were never paid for. That's the emotional labor, ladies. That's what we're talking about. They get recognized, but you're the one pouring in, but they're the one being elevated, right? And here was the thing. It's wrapped in sisterhood. It's wrapped in support. It's wrapped in community. And you know what? You don't even question it. What's wrong with this picture? You tell yourself that it's okay. It's for the cause. It's about helping. But let's be honest. Helping should not feel like being used. And some of you have been used for so long, you can't even recognize it. You're still in that ride or die syndrome. You're caught up. You don't even recognize that you're being used, right? So let's do a reality check for a moment. And I'm going to say something that might sting a little. Every opportunity is not alignment. Every ask is not an assignment. And every woman is not operating in integrity just because she calls it empowerment. I'm going to ask you, ladies, to let that sit with you because I know some of you can relate, right? Not every woman you're encountering is operating in integrity. And that's real. They're hiding behind the auspice that it's empowerment, but no, it's not. No, it's not. And I say that because there are women out there who have mastered delegating without acknowledgement. You guys know what I mean by that? You're doing it, they're not acknowledging it, right? They've learned how to leverage what you're doing without pouring back. They don't give back, right? They've even learned how to position themselves on your work. Your work. That's the operative word, on your work. And you're over here thinking you're being supportive when really you're being extracted from. That's right. You're being extracted from. That's real. Right. So I think back over my life and how I have evolved. And I think about where I've had moments where I've said yes. I've said yes to speaking engagements. I've said yes to showing up. I've said yes to lending my voice, my presence, my expertise. And I watched the room shift. I watched the impact land. I watched the value I brought. But I also watched someone else take ownership for that moment. Can you relate? Type it in the comment section. Give me a hands up, a shout out, right? somebody else taking ownership. There's no acknowledgement. There's no alignment. There's no reciprocity. And I had to sit with that. I had to sit with that because I realized that I'm only as good as what I've done for you today. Right? And that's why we need to unpack this. We need to recognize, we need to know. Ladies, remember, we're in the season of unlearning. You're unlearning all that stuff that you've been dealing with, you've taken on, you've handled, right? So when you learn and you sit with it, here's the thing, the question that you got to ask. It's, at least for me, it wasn't, why did they do that? The real question was, why did I agree to it in the first place? That hit me like a ton of bricks. And hopefully it's hitting you because this is about changing behaviors. This is about recognizing, your worth is, it's valuable, it's important, right? So the hard truth about all of this, and here's what we don't talk about enough, is when you don't value your labor, whew, someone else will take advantage of it. That's right. And I know many of you can already relate to that. You've seen it, it's happened, you know it's real. That's right. Someone else will take advantage of what you've done, your labor. And I must say this, it's not always maliciously. Sometimes it's just convenient. But convenient for them, it becomes costly for you. It does. When I talk about the cost, I want us to be honest about the cost. Because when we reflect upon emotional labor will drain your energy. It will also confuse your identity. Emotional labor will cause you to lower your standards. It also will silence your voice. It will disconnect you from yourself. Why? Because when you are constantly focused on what they need, what someone else needs, right? How they feel, what they might think, you lose sight of you. And that's the real cost. Not the relationship, you. It's all about you. So when we talk about having a shift, this is where the unlearning begins. All right? So I hope you're taking notes, ladies, because the unlearning begins by this. You have to stop asking, how can I keep this together? And start asking, why am I the only one holding it? You have to stop over explaining. Stop over giving. Stop over caring. And then you've got to start doing something that will feel, let's say, it'll feel uncomfortable at first. Like, let people manage themselves. Let them figure it out, right? Let them sit in their emotions. Be responsible for their actions. That's what you got to do. Because your job is not to carry grown people emotionally. Just not. Been there, done that, over with. So I want to transition into you redefining who you are, right? First of all, I want you to understand that you are not the emotional caretaker for everyone. You are not the fixer. You are not the one who makes everything okay. Why do I say that? I say that because you are becoming a woman who honors her capacity. Yes, yes. You are becoming a woman who chooses where her energy goes. You are a woman who no longer confuses overgiving with love. You are a woman who understands just because you can carry it, oh my goodness, get this, doesn't mean that you should, right? That's what you are becoming. So when we look back and talk about and think about the emotional labor, all that work that you put in that you were never paid for. So this is where your unlearning expands. It's not just about saying, I won't overgive in relationships. That's not what it's about at all. But it's also saying that you're not going to overextend in spaces or places or people that do not honor you. And I feel it in my spirit. I know that there's so many of you. You look back, and when you really evaluate and examine those relationships, you know what? You already know that you've not been honored. You already know that you aren't being considered, right? And so what that means that there's no more free access to your expertise, right? There's it just can't be. You allow free access when others are being paid. There's no more showing up. Come on, ladies. When someone else is being elevated off of your work, there is no more confusing visibility with value. Because let me be clear, exposure does not pay your worth, and it certainly doesn't pay your bills. Anybody relate to that? Right. Yeah. So I want to move you into what I'm going to call the power lane. And the power lane, and what I mean by that is you are not here to be the background voice, right? You're not here to be the silent contributor or the unpaid expert. You are not the woman behind the woman. I need to say that again. You are not the woman behind the woman. You are here to be recognized, respected, and properly positioned. Okay? With that, and this right here, this is still emotional labor because it's not just about what you do, it's about what you carry while doing it, right? So the overthinking, the justifying, the minimizing, we're not doing that anymore. And let me say this, if you've been giving your time, your voice, your expertise in spaces that have benefited from you but don't honor you, that's a table too. Ladies, feel me on that. That's a table. Yes, no question about it. So let me leave this with you. If you're exhausted, it's not because you are weak. It's because you've been strong in places that never required your strength. And maybe it's time to put some of that down. I always say this, if this conversation hit you, if you felt seen in this, then you already know. You know this, but I'm going to say it. There are tables in your life where you've been overgiving and under receiving. And again, my book, When to Get Up from the Table When Love Is Not Being Served, was written for that moment. Not to tell you what to do, but to help you recognize when it's time. If you're ready to stop carrying what isn't yours, start here. And if this resonated with you, share this with the woman who's been carrying way too much for too long. The woman who's tired of being the good friend, the ride or die loyalist, the giver with no return on your investment. You all know some of that and then some. But the reason why we're unpacking this, because you're not doing that anymore. Not at all. You're not doing it at all. So don't forget to like, share, follow me, and listen in as much as you need to change your behavior of overgiving. Remember that Unpack This can be found on, the top 12, 15 podcast platforms. And until this time, next week, be sure and tune in and to evaluate the emotional labor that you have been giving away for free. I'm Gloria Bailey Ray, the Authentic Coach. Be well, be blessed. Take care.